Hey, what's going on, everybody? Coucou, bonsoir. My name is Hollywood Jade, and today I'm in my feelings about the Black Canadian experience versus the Black American experience. I identify as a first-generation Canadian who was born to Caribbean parents. So I am of Caribbean descent, but I'm a first-generation Canadian. I am of Caribbean descent. I grew up in a household, a Jamaican household, so there might be some patois that slips in and out of the conversation. My grandmother decided to leave Jamaica. She got on a plane and just flew to a new country because she wanted a better life, not just for her children, but subsequently her grandchildren. A lot of people question or ask why Canada versus anywhere else in the world, and I truthfully think it is just that Canada was a little easier to get access to, and they all just were fascinated by this concept of moving to foreign, which is like foreign land. So anywhere beyond the island that they resided on, they were just fascinated. And so my grandma picked up and got on a plane and moved to Canada. And then my parents, my mom came over with her siblings a couple years after, and then she met my dad. Canada, but primarily in Toronto, there is a huge Jamaican and Caribbean culture, I think, in large part because Canada just accepts everybody with open arms. Like, even within the queer community, there's like, you can claim asylum if your life is threatened or you don't feel safe living where you were born, and you can move to Canada and the government will help you get on your feet. So I think that has created a rather large population of Caribbean folks that exist within Canada. And the good thing about this is that being a first-generation Canadian, I can go back to Jamaica and trace where my great-grandfather lives, right? And I think that's one of the differences between Canada and America, where most Americans, when you ask them where they're from, like if in a place like LA, you'll ask somebody where they're from, they're like, oh, I'm from Kansas. And I'm like, no, but where are you from? And they're like, Kansas. And at an early age, traveling back and forth, I realized that is a huge difference between being a Canadian, a Black Canadian, versus being a Black American. And that realization has shaped the way that I interact with people, because it's given me a grace to understand, to meet them where they're at, and also is a reminder to me how privileged I am to be able to go back and trace my family's lineage to my great-grandfather. So that's one big difference I have found with the Canadian experience versus the American experience. I think one of the things too for us to remember, and I like to reference Toronto as being the university college student to the parent, which would be like New York, and the grandparent, which would be like in LA, because these are industries that have existed and have been around for a long time, and the industry in Toronto is still young and figuring itself out and finding its footing. So a lot of like something as simple as like paperwork, our structure isn't rooted in necessarily trying to classify and put everybody into boxes. America's very like, you are Afro-Latina this, or African-American that. There's always like a sub thing before it, whereas in Canada, it's like, are you Canadian or are you other? And whatever that other is, you just put on the form, and our forms are consistently always changing. Like I recently had to apply for something, and seeing non-binary, gender fluid, and these things on these forms that have little to nothing to do with your ethnicity, and more so with how you personally identify. I think that's a huge difference, and even seeing that on paper now makes my heart smile when I think about a 14-year-old or a 16-year-old who's going to go get their driver's license and can put down non-binary on their driver's license, you know? And it's just growth and progression, and I'm not sure if that's happening as quickly over here, but like Canada's really proactive with that, and I think that again speaks to the volume of it being a younger industry, a younger country, a younger, like a fresher mindset. They're quicker to adjust than, you know, some institutions that definitely need some updating on this side of the border. All right, y'all, so this has been Hollywood Jade, and I have been in my feelings about the Black Canadian experience versus the Black American experience. Thank you for listening. Peace, love, and hair grease.